Ladies and gentlemen, it is 4:13. I'd like to begin the process of calling the meeting to order. If all board members will please take their chairs, please. Thanks. Okay, let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Gutierrez, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Secretary, could you please do a roll call?
Yes, sir. Mr. Ferre? Here. Mr. Gonzalez? Here. Ms. Gutierrez? Here. Mr. Meyer? Mr. Vasquez? Mr. Walters? Ms. Weinberg? I know she's here.
She's here.
Secretary Pago? Here. Treasurer Rodriguez-Pina?
Here.
Vice Chair Fano? Chair Martinez?
Here.
We have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. Before we approval of the agenda, I have an add-on that we need to move into the agenda, which is the discussion of, we just had an executive committee meeting, and we need to discuss amending the contract of our general counsel, Carlos Zaldivar. Carlos, Zaldivar, I always mispronounce your name, and I apologize for that. Will somebody wish to move to change the agenda? Moved by Ms. Gutierrez, seconded by Vice Chair Fano and by Mr. Gonzalez. Open for discussion. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, discussion is closed. All in favor say aye. 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 Therefore, the agenda is now set. We're ready to begin. Council, if you can do item D, please.
Sure. Do any members of this committee have any conflicts with any items on the agenda? I see none. Move forward.
Item E, citizens' comment. Does anyone have any citizen comments today? Mr. Counsel?
Mr. Chair, board members, thank you for allowing me to take a moment. I did the same thing last week at the Operations Committee, so I'll be very brief.
Please state your name and your address, please.
My name is Mauricio Gonzalez, Director of Construction for Oliver's Construction, Inc., located at 201 Alhambra Circle, Coral Gables, Florida. I'd like to thank the board for allowing me to take a moment and offer a response to MCM statements made in this forum and at the Operations Committee last month related to Oliver's USA. MCM representatives made misleading, false, defamatory, and irresponsible representations and distributed a letter about Oliver's USA to the board members during these presentations, which were not related to the bid protest on MDX 83629, but they were a direct attack on Oliver's USA's reputation. Oliver's USA has sent a letter to the board members to set the record straight on these false accusations about the relationships between Oliver's SA and Oliver's USA, about the credit ratings and the bonding capacity of Oliver's USA, and about the MDX's 83628 project status. Not only has Oliver's USA sent a letter to MDX and the staff, but also we sent a letter to MCM, a cease and desist letter to MCM as a courtesy in case they decide to continue with these false and defamatory statements about Oliver's USA. We will take legal action on it. Regarding MCM's statement about the 83628 project that they claim it's behind schedule, nothing can be further from the truth. The job is on schedule. Oliver's USA is committed with the resources, and the job is, we got ample resources to complete the project on time. MCM not only makes a false statement about the status of the 83628 project, but promises you to complete the 83629 project some 200 days ahead of what 7 other bidders bid for time on the same project, including Oliver's. I would suggest the board look at the past track record of performance when it comes to schedule of MCM with the Florida Department of Transportation, with Miami-Dade Transit. It's public records and available to you. Oliver's USA, on the other hand, has an impeccable reputation for completing projects on time for the last 26 years in the United States. On both the MDX 83628 project, which I don't want to steal legal team's thunder, but we had some good legal news here last week, and on the 836-29 projects, we will do the same thing for you. As you know, we're going through hearings this week, and we remain confident that the judge will do the right thing, just like you did in awarding the job to the company that complied with the rules, Oliver's USA, on the 836-29 project. I'd like to thank you once again for the opportunity to perform on 836-28 and hopefully soon on 836-29 as well. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Section 2, approval of summary minutes. Has anyone all had the opportunity to review the minutes? Does anyone wish to move them? Ms. Gutierrez, seconded by Treasurer Rodriguez-Pena. Closed. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, discussion is closed. All in favor say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. Executive Director's Report.
Mr. Chairman, board members, give you updates on 3 projects. You heard Mr. Gonzalez speak about 836-28. We're progressing on time and budget, continue with our right-of-way activities, and construction is ongoing on the 3 major interchanges on State Road 836. For the public, for the board, if any of you hear any kind of issues or concerns with the maintenance of traffic, scheduling of construction, please let us know immediately. We are working in active areas, entrance to the airport, entrance to many centers in Miami-Dade County, and it is a work in progress, and our team, our contractors have been extremely cooperative in adjusting accordingly. 874-10, the extension of 874, again, is progressing on time and budget. We've got items on the agenda for additional right-of-way resolutions. That is, I have no problem with how that's progressing. On the MDX FDOT procurement for I-395 83611, it is ongoing. Letters have been received. We are in the process of moving through that procurement, and I am limited in how much I can say there. But on the MDX standpoint, we continue committed in acquiring the right-of-way and having the right-of-way at hand by the time we by the time we award the contract next year. I'm not going to belabor the fact, but as you know, the legislative session was complete. House Bill 299 passed and was signed by the governor on March 25th at Executive Committee. And I know that the chairman will say this a little later, so I'll leave it. We will be looking at a variety of issues at MDX. I will also say that the legislature passed the transportation bill, which was a significant bill for transportation in the state of Florida, Miami-Dade County. And if Secretary Pago wants to mention anything, I'm sure he will. On the March 16th, MDX, as well as Florida DOT, Miami-Dade County, and the MPO, we participated in a panel discussion at the Latin Builders Signature Legislative Breakfast. It was an interesting conversation. It focused on collaboration and moving forward with choices in transportation, not just the silos that we're accustomed to. The significance of the panel is that there was a call to, there was how do you say this? We asked them to do something on behalf of transportation. And as builders, as contractors here in Miami-Dade County, instead of going through the path of least resistance when we're building, let's, as a community, focus on the 4 corridors that we believe are important for transportation that have been identified. Let's intensify the density there. Let's concentrate our construction along those corridors from a density standpoint so that eventually, first with buses and then with potential trains or any kind of fixed rail, they make sense. So there was a call to action of the LBA. I did focus on the strategic master plan and our efforts of collaboration with all the other agencies. This morning, speaking about collaboration, in 2010, and I believe many of you were here, we held a joint meeting with Florida International University. We hosted President Rosenberg here in this boardroom, and we talked about working together for the betterment of our community. Today, Secretary Pago and his colleagues at the United States Department of Transportation and many of the local partners here in Miami-Dade County participated in a groundbreaking for a Tiger grant that was awarded to Florida International University in 2013. The Tiger grant had various elements. The signature element is a pedestrian bridge over Tamiami Trail connecting the university to the housing. About 4,000 students are living in Sweetwater. The significance of the project goes beyond that. The significance of the project is that a parking garage within Florida International was modified to accept buses, express buses, that will then get on 836 and use the express lanes to access Miami International Airport and downtown Miami. The significance of the project is also that we're creating the first phase of an informed traveler program, a predictive modeling tool that a consumer can use to figure out where they want to go and how quickly they can get there as we're collecting data on our system. So it was a proud moment as a graduate of FIU. I want to thank board members on behalf of the staff and the consulting staff for taking time out of your schedules to meet with Luisa Hamil on the strategic master plan. I know many of you have done that, and I think there's a few that are still scheduled. I want to remind everyone that we're going to have a workshop on April 6th, and it's going to be complex conversations. If we want projects, we're going to have to get down and dirty and figure out how we're going to afford the projects, where they fit, how they fit, and I know the treasurer has had multiple conversations with staff on doing that evaluation. And finally, before I close, the cashback toll dividends program, the open enrollment closes on Thursday, March 31st. Mario has a lot of the details, but just in general, over 100,000 people have signed up for the program. And, our CFO just informed me, that about 90-some-odd% cashed their checks, 97% cashed their checks that were issued, and that's unheard of. So that was real successful. We encourage anybody who hasn't signed up to go online and sign up. I have been getting emails of folks, and I direct them to staff so that they can be assisted. But if anybody knows of anyone, please let them know so they can sign up. With that, I close my report.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Any questions of the Director? Hearing none. Moving on. General Counsel report.
Yeah, good afternoon. I have three matters to report on. The first is the ETCC litigation. We haven't got a decision yet, but the judge promised that he would have a decision by April 1st. Okay. That being said, I don't know what the decision will be, good, bad, neutral, indifferent. So I'm going to ask for a shade meeting in anticipation of that coming out at the end of the week. We would have 30 days to file an appeal if that's what we want to do, but I want to make sure that I get on the record, ask for a shade meeting. So pursuant to that, pursuant to the statute, I'm therefore announcing that I require advice regarding the case ETCC versus Miami-Dade Expressway Authority. The meeting will take place during the next board meeting, which is scheduled for April 26th or sooner, depending on the date of the decision. The individuals that can be present are the attorney for the agency, which is myself and Francine Stillman, a court reporter whose name is unknown, outside counsel, which would be Joe Sirota, Michael Arnstein, and Eric Hoffman, and Javier Rodriguez as the executive director, and all board members. Okay?
Mr. Counsel, I'm sure I speak for the whole board. Our next board meeting is the 26th, 4 days. If it comes out on the 1st, that's going to be really close to the 30-day deadline. So I'm going to strongly recommend that as soon as we get the decision, within 10 days of the decision coming out, we have a meeting so that we have plenty of time to make the determination of our decision. Yes, sir, Mr.
Mr. Chairman, you have an April 6th meeting anyway, so wouldn't that be the occasion?
But we're going to be here for the strategic plan. The shade meeting could also take on some time. If the,
I just said sooner or thereafter, depending on when it comes out. I mean, he said before April 1st, but and I'm not saying anything. I mean, Judge Thornton's a pretty diligent guy, so we might get it Friday. So we can do it, but I just wanted to make sure that we announced it and we'll properly notice it.
I agree with you, Mr. Ferre. My only concern is we're going to need our legal team to process the decision, and I'm not sure if it comes out either Monday or, let's say, either Friday or Monday, they're going to have enough time to give us a full evaluation. That's why I suggested 10 days after the decision came out. But I'll leave it at the discretion of staff to determine the date. But I think it's a good idea, but I don't know if that's enough time, because the decision could be very lengthy relating to the amount of allegations in this case. Go on with your report. I apologize for interrupting.
No problem. On the MCM1 litigation, the appellate court, on Wednesday of last week, March 23rd, the appellate court affirmed the lower court's decision, motion to dismiss on Wednesday of last week. They have 15 days to ask for a rehearing. As I said, you all the copy of the decision, as you will know, there was no decision. It was just affirming the lower courts. And lastly, on the MCM bid protest 2, as I advised, we started our hearing on March 28th. We were lucky enough that the judge's trial for that week was suspended, or they settled, or something. Well, it's not on the calendar anymore. So he said he's going to get it done this week. We were there Monday. We were there this morning. We finished at noon, and we start off tomorrow morning after his morning calendar. So we'll be there starting about between 9:30 and 10 o'clock. He said we'll go to 5:30 tomorrow. From being there and the list of witnesses that are left, I think we probably will finish up tomorrow. Whether he'll render a decision on tomorrow, I don't know. But I think the matter as the evidentiary hearing will probably conclude tomorrow.
Anything further?
Nothing.
Any questions of our general counsel? Hearing none, let's move on. Treasurer's, I apologize. MPO Representative, Mr. Ferre.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The MPO is moving along well. There was no action in the legislature this year, fortunately, to change the MPO. The chair has constituted a governance committee which is dealing with issues of governance, and that's moving along. The committee chaired by Commissioner Dennis Moss on transit wants to conclude in the next few months with a plan, and that's moving along. The Danielle Levine's Committee on Finance is having trouble getting a quorum to meet, and that's now happened several times, and that's frustrating. These are important issues, but this is the commissioners serve part-time, and it's hard to get people together on these things. So we're moving along, but the MPO, I think, under the leadership of the new executive director, who's terrific, and she's making all the rounds and talking to all the people, and things are moving along. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for that concise report, Mr. Ferre. Any questions of Mr. Ferre? Hearing none, moving on. Treasurer report, Mr. Rodriguez-Pena. Treasurer, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For those of you who were not here at the Budget and Finance Committee, we gave a quick overview of our budget situation. We do have a good adjustment, a positive adjustment, I think about 11%. That is due to an anomaly, if you will, so don't get used to it, I guess, in short. It's a great increase. We take the opportunity, but I think overall we're performing well. I'm going to let Marie expand a little bit on that and give her quick minute overview. I do want to take this opportunity to set the table for the upcoming discussions on budget and finance. I think that there is a lot of discussion that needs to be had, Mr. Chairman and board members, regarding our future financing and consistent with our strategic master plan as well. As I mentioned in budget and finance, we are revisiting all areas of the budget, if you will, to identify places where we can find ways to pay for these strategic plans, whatever ones we choose to address. More to come on that, but definitely I would ask all of you to keep an open mind. I encourage participation because we do have to get creative, and I think in light of some of our new changes, we're going to be revisiting all these policies, the fiscal and financial policies, and I think it's an opportunity for us to dig deep to look at all of our policies that allow us to maximize our revenue and the ability to afford projects going into the future. Marie, if you would talk a little bit about our finances and the anomaly.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. As the Treasurer indicated, revenue is, for the 8-month period, positive. We posted $152 million. The significant positive effect on revenue is a couple of factors. Overall, the traffic is performing much better than what the forecast is. In general, throughout all the expressways, a little bit less than 3%, some of the expressways above 3%. The other factor as to why we're outperforming the forecast is because of the shift between SunPass and Toll by Plate. It was anticipated that more commuters would shift over to SunPass, which is a lower rate. So that is contributing to the positive revenue factor that you see in the report. And the other aspect is fees, collection of fees has outperformed the forecast as well by $5 million. So those are all the contributory factors as to why revenue is performing so well. On the expense side, we're pretty much flat. We're right on target to where the budget was. So I do anticipate that the expenditures, we'd see a little bit more of a savings towards the last half of the fiscal year. We may end up about a savings about 2% there. So very positive news overall in the finances.
Mr. Chairman, that pretty much concludes our report. Again, that the fees, the late fees was an accumulation that, again, is represented here, and that is what I was referring to as this anomaly, this back payments, if you will, fees that we've collected. With that, that concludes our report.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
question, you said 3%. Is that 3% cumulative or just for the month?
It's 3% cumulative,
Cumulative, okay.
for the entire year. Now, some expressways are outperforming 3%.
I see. So, but the average is plus 3% for...
On all 5 expressways, yes.
For the 4 or 5 months?
For the 8-month period.
For the 8-month period. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Murray, for your... Mr. Director, if it's acceptable, since I believe all of the committee reports will be encompassed in the action items, is that correct? Move forward. Council, let's start with subsection 8. You're on.
Consent agenda, approval, April 28, 29, 2016. Trip to Tampa, Florida by board members and Executive Director Rodriguez to attend the Team Florida and FTC annual joint meeting.
Moved by Ms. Weinberg, seconded by Mr. Rodriguez Pina. Open for discussion. Any discussion? Hearing none. Is it unanimous? Aye. Aye. Consent agenda, so approved unanimously. It passes. Subsection 9, excuse me, 9.
Regular agenda. Item A, MDX procurement contract, number MDX 15-12, legal representation and civil action brought against MDX, endorsed by the Policy and Planning Committee on March 22nd, 2016. Approval of contract amount increase due to litigation in circuit court, case number 15-04267-CA-23, involving bid protest filed by Manilla Construction Management, LLC.
I believe this will be presented for staff by Helen, is that correct?
Thank you, sir. The requested action is to approve a contract amount increase to the contract with Kirk DeLeon and Associates for an amount of $30,000 due to the ongoing litigation that General Counsel just briefed us on. This is for the MCN bid number 1. That's what we're calling it, number 1 and number 2, basically. And so we're asking for a contract increase to take care of the expenses already incurred, as well as the upcoming ones as we close down this case.
Very well. Anyone wish to move the item? Moved by Vice Chair Fano, seconded by Secretary Pagel. It's open for discussion. Does anyone have any questions from the board? I have one question, Helen. Now that we've had the appeal affirmed, how does it affect the need for these additional funds for that particular case, or is this for just to set up what we already owe? If council could clarify that for us.
Well, I think when we originally drafted this we didn't know what was going to happen at the appellate level. There is the potential of a rehearing, so we're covered there. And
we're pursuing our legal fees as well, the recovery of our legal fees.
That's very, okay.
This is the not to exceed contract amount, so obviously whatever is not needed will not be used.
That's excellent. Thank you for the clarification. Any other questions? Hearing none. Discussion is closed. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Council?
Item B, MDX procurement contract number, MDX 16-03, legal representation and civil action brought against MDX, endorsed by the Policy and Planning Committee on March 22nd, 2016. Approval of contract amount increase due to litigation in circuit court, case number 16-1946-CA-01, involving bid protest filed by Mania Construction Management, LLC.
Helen, I believe you will be presenting for staff on this as well?
Thank you. Again, the requested action is to increase the contract amount by $50,000 due to the ongoing litigation. As General Counsel briefed earlier, we're going through the hearings, and whatever else comes after that, hopefully we'll get a quick resolution. This, too, is the not-to-exceed contract amount, so whatever is not necessary will not be utilized.
Anyone wish to move the item? Moved by Treasurer Rodriguez-Pena, seconded by Mayor Ferre. Open for discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, discussion is closed. All in favor say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Counsel?
Item C, MDX fiscal year 2017 to 2021 five-year work program, transportation improvement, capital improvement, and renewal and replacement programs. Total project cost, $1.41 billion. Endorsed by the Joint Budget and Finance and Operations Committee on March 22nd, 2016. Approval of fiscal year 2017 to 2021 work program.
Board members, Juan Toledo and his staff will present and answer questions as necessary, but I do want to state for the record, as is included in your agenda item report, Project 83634, which was the State Road 836 new heft ramps, total cost of $28.7 million, was removed from the five-year work program pursuant to the wishes of the Joint Budget and Finance and Operations Committee. We will do a standalone analysis of that project, bring it back through Operations and Budget and Finance, and if at the right time is necessary to amend the work program, we'll do so at that time. But this program does not include that project.
For purposes of discussion only, does anyone wish to move the item? Move. Moved by Vice Chair Fano, seconded by Board Member Weinberg. It's open for discussion. I understand Juan will be doing a presentation.
Good afternoon, board members. In the interest of time, everybody here present today was at the Joint Budget and Finance and Operations Committee. So we have the presentation ready to go if you all want to see it again, but we're ready to answer questions on the work program. As Javier stated, we removed the project that was in question during the Operations Committee and Joint Budget and Finance, so that is no longer part of this work program, and the numbers were adjusted accordingly.
For clarification, this was thoroughly discussed by Operations, but if any of the board members that were not present wish to see the presentation of the work program, I will make sure it's presented. Hearing none, any questions, and we can do this. Mr. Rodriguez-Pena first, and then we'll go from there.
How long is the presentation, just for the record?
The presentation is 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I have a follow-up question.
Well,
Thank you.
my first question, do you wish to see the presentation, or can we just go to questions?
I'll
I'll leave it to the discretion of the board.
We have it ready to go if you want to see it again.
I'll take a pass on that. I don't know for the
Okay,
rest
that's
of the
fine.
board.
Then, it's open for discussion, so who wishes to begin with any questions?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Rodriguez-Pena, which is
Okay.
what I called on you the first time.
Yeah, thank you. So, Juan, specifically, once we approve this work program today, what projects will be going out to bid? In other words, once we approve this item today, what items will be released, put on the road, and then timelines, based on the work program?
Before you answer that question, is there someone on the phone? Hello?
Yes,
Who's that?
AJ here.
Okay,
Sorry,
may the record reflect
I
that
inadvertently spoke
Sorry.
during Board Member Rodriguez-Pena.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, if you can note that Mr. A.J. Meyer is present via telephone for today's meeting. And I apologize for interrupting you, Mr. Treasurer. If you could ask your question again and let Juan answer it.
So, Juan, and again, in short, what items or projects will be released as a result of us approving this work program today, and timelines? In other words, prior to today, I'm assuming we were holding back on certain projects, and we needed approval of this board to be able to move forward. What projects will be moving forward and what timelines? I mean,
Okay, prior to today, the only two projects that we were holding were the two new projects that are part of this work program now, which is the 874-13, which are the 874 ramps from Southwest 72nd Street, and the 5001 project, which is the Dolphin Park and Ride. We needed to get approval of the work program to proceed with that. The Dolphin Park and Ride project would be the first one that goes on the street. That one's pretty much ready to go. The documents are in procurement. We're finalizing those, so we hope to be out on the street with that in the next couple of weeks or towards the end of April, depending on the questions that we get back from procurement on the package that we submitted. That project we had committed to advertise in the spring so that we can get prices in by the summer, so that we can have a completion date of end of 2017, early 2018 for this project. The 874-13, we would begin our project development on that. We're looking to put that out as a very small design build project, and that we haven't really put that into the lighting plan yet. We got to work with procurement on that, but we'd be looking to do something towards the end of the calendar year as far as advertisement on that project. Every other project in the work program was existing. They're already in the lighting plan, and those would be scattered out through the remainder of the calendar year.
Mr. Chairman?
Of course.
Yep. So with regards to the very meritorious Dolphin Station Park and Ride, which I think it's a great project, just for clarification purposes, we're going to be fronting that money, and then we're going to get that money paid back over a period of time. I don't know if it's a question to the CFO, or can somebody talk to me about the specifics of how we're paying for that, and then the timeline on how we get that back.
I'll start, and then if I miss anything, Marie will chime in. But basically, based on the schedule for the project, what we're really going to be doing is fronting some of the cash flow. We're expecting to get we should be getting some of the monies in while we're in the procurement process and then through construction. So we're talking about a 6 to 12 month lag between the time that we spend the money and we get the money back from the respective agencies.
Okay. Is that?
He's correct.
Okay. All right. So that one, we're going to front the money, we're going to get it back in within 6 to 10 months is what you're saying, approximately.
Right, it's going to be kind of it's sort of like a cash flow. We're going to be paying out the contractor, and within 6 to 12 months, we'll be recouping the monies as we pay them out.
Coming back from the county and the state as well, if I'm not mistaken?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions, Mr. Treasurer?
I reserve the right to ask more questions, but not for right now. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions from the board?
I think from a clarification standpoint, I think because the treasurer asked a very pointed question, and it's very important because of the process part of it. The new project that gets added, 874 connector, as Director Toledo stated, this approval of this work program doesn't trigger us going out to the street. We still have to bring back the item to the Operations Committee, and we still have to get it approved by the Operations Committee before we go out to a procurement. And then before we award it, it comes back to the Operations Committee and the board before it's awarded. So this is basically the roadmap for the 5 years, and it basically is an instrument that says all these projects that we committed to, that we're working on, we can afford. And that's really what it talks about. And then it adds a new 5th year. And if you notice, the new 5th year doesn't have a lot. We're waiting and we're reserving the potential capacity for the strategic master plan. At that point, as we said at the Budget and Finance and the Operations Committee, whatever projects come out of the strategic plan, I think staff will go back and look at the various options that will be afforded to this board to make decisions on affordability within the 5-year plan, potentially, or outside of the 5-year plan. So that is the next exercise that the board will go through. But as far as what we've committed to, that's in this 5-year plan, we can afford it, and it's in, and most of it is already moving forward.
Of course, Treasurer.
So thank you for that explanation, Mr. Executive Director. I think it's a perfect segue for kind of the point, and that I feel the voice here of finance and my responsibility. I think my biggest concern is, the commitments that we're making today. I know we have the ability to put the brakes on in the future. right? And that's what I'm looking at, is to ensure that just because we agree on it today doesn't mean we're not going to go back and revisit it in light of the strategic plan. Everything that in my brain is hovering is a strategic master plan. We may have some very practical opportunities today, but at the cost of what future projects. And I think balancing that is a challenge for this organization. And again, my responsibility to find, I feel, the funds that we need to have to address all of our needs. And I think part of revisiting with staff all of our policies is where do we go find the money, whether it's private-public partnerships, whether it's TIF monies, whether it's not doing some of these projects, even though this board has agreed to doing it today, do we hold them back for a year because we're going to use the extra $10 million that we could have had in our coffer to advance other projects that are going to make us more revenue. So again, it's a very complicated math equation, but I just wanted for the record to state that I think it is incumbent upon this board that we look at these projects and understand that we do have the ability to stop them at any point in time. Obviously, once they're let, and we can't stop that, and that's why I ask these questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Director.
Absolutely, Mr. Treasurer. Any other questions? Hearing no other questions, discussion is closed. All in favor of item C, please state aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, item passes unanimously. I would like to thank, on behalf of myself, the presentation from both HNTV and by the clarification by our staff and our bonds representation to clarify some concerns I had about the issue of CPI. And I'll put on the record that at that operations meeting, it was clearly made to me, and this will be, a copy of this will be held, that these projects can move forward without the need of CPI being brought into fruition unless some type of emergency situation or something unforeseen occurred. I'm not going to misquote anyone. Thank you for that. And again, I'd like to thank staff and HNTB for their presentations. Thank you. Next item, council.
Before we move to the next item, Board Member Meyer, are you still on the phone? I was see if he has any conflicts with any of the remaining items, but I don't think he's on anymore. Okay, we'll move forward. MDX procurement contract, MDX 13-02, system-wide intelligent transportation systems maintenance, diagnostics, repairs, and installation service, endorsed by the Joint Budget and Finance and Operations Committee on March 22nd, 2016. Approval of contract renewal.
I believe Ivan will be presenting for staff.
If we need to answer any questions, Ivan and Juan are prepared to answer those questions.
Anyone wish to move the item? Moved by Vice Chair Fano, seconded by Secretary Pago. It's open for discussion. Any questions? Yes, sir, Mr. Rodriguez-Pena.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be brief. I think I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about this project is a worthy project. I think when we're looking at projects that are ITS related, we talk about automated systems. We are at that pinnacle of making decisions like this, and I think I encourage the board members to pay more attention to this ITS projects. We're talking about automated cars and all this. We need to pay attention to projects like this, and there'll be more coming. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, discussion is closed. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, item passed unanimously. Next item, council.
Item E, joint participation agreement with FDOT for the Dolphin Station Park and Ride Terminal Facility Project, endorsed by the Joint Budget and Finance and Operations Committee on March 22nd, 2016. Approval of supplemental joint participation agreement number 2 between FDOT and MDX for the deferred reimbursement of funding by FDOT of 50% of the construction costs for this Dolphin Station Park and Ride Terminal Facility Project.
Okay, I believe Juan's going to be the presenter for staff.
Board members, as was stated, this is a JPA supplemental agreement number 2 for the joint participation agreement with DOT. This is for the 50% construction match for the Dolphin Park and Ride, $5 million. We've already entered into the agreement with Miami-Dade Transit for the other $5 million, and as was stated, we're ready to go out and advertise this project once we get all these items approved.
For purpose of discussion only, does anyone wish to move the item? Moved by Secretary Pago, seconded by Mr. Gonzalez. The item is now open for discussion. Any questions on this item for those who may not have been present for the presentation at the Operations Committee? Mr. Treasurer, any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I've raised my questions there about fronting the money. I think I support this item at this point.
Anybody else? I just want to make a comment. I strongly support this item for several reasons. I believe this item, in conjunction with what we're doing with the improvement of the shoulders to allow for express buses, indicates our commitment to a transportation solution, not simply a highway authority. And I'd like to thank FDOT and the county for working with us on this, and hopefully this is the beginning of a long and fruitful relationship in solving our problems. And I'd like to thank staff, FDOT, and this board for thinking outside of the box, as a very dear friend of mine has always used as a term, in trying to move us forward. So that's it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Next item, Council.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I could read F and G together as we did in the Operations Committee, and since it's the same approval of eminent domain parcels, if you would like.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, MDX Work Program number 87410, State Road 874 ramp connector to 128th Street. MDX Work Program number 83611, State Road 836 I-95 interchange improvement, both endorsed by the Joint Budget and Finance and Operations Committee on March 22nd, 2016. Approval of eminent domain parcels resolution 15-28R, 16-02R, 16-05R, and 16-20.
Do we need to do two separate, can we do a joint motion for both, or do I need to do two separate motions, Council?
Well, it's two separate matters.
I have a motion for item F, Mr. Gonzalez, seconded by Ms. Gutierrez, and now I'll do a motion for, we can discuss both at the same time, item G, motion by Ms. Gutierrez, seconded by Mr. Gonzalez. Now, both items are open for discussion. Any discussion? Hearing none, discussion is closed. For item F first, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it passed unanimously. Now for item G, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Item H, please, Council.
MDX procurement contract number MDX 14-03, enhanced imaging processing system, $1,957,661, endorsed by the Joint Budget and Finance and Operations Committee on March 22nd, 2016. Approval of amendment number 4 to exercise renewal of contract term and modify the scope of services.
Council, I believe we did both of these items together because I think it was easier to explain them together. Is that correct, Steve?
That is correct.
The explanation he did together.
Could you read them both, so that way we'll be able to do the same thing? Because I think it made more sense doing it that way.
For the record, this is item I, MDX procurement contract number MDX 16-04, manual image review processing service, $756,000, endorsed by the Joint Budget and Finance and Operations Committee on March 22nd, 2016. Approval of contract award with Prison Rehabilitative Industries and Diversified Enterprises, Inc.
Does anyone, okay, first to move for discussion only, item H, moved by Board Member Weinberg, seconded by Mr. Vasquez. And for item I, moved by Mr. Vasquez, seconded by Board Member Weinberg. Both items are now been moved, seconded, open for discussion. Steve, if you could, does anyone have any questions for Steve? All right, hearing no questions, discussion is closed. And for item H first, all in favor say aye. 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 Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. For item I now, all in favor say aye. 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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. The item J.
Executive Director's Performance Evaluation.
Who is anyone going to present it? Fano.
Shortly before this meeting, we did the performance evaluation of our executive director, and it was a unanimous decision to follow the contract. And is Carol here? Carol, if you could give a report on it, I'd appreciate it so that it's succinct.
Good afternoon. The Executive Committee conducted the performance appraisal and awarded Mr. Rodriguez the highest rating that that there is for his performance over the last year. The contract does call for a maximum of 6.5% increase to his salary, and that was voted upon, but at Mr. Rodriguez's request, he's requested it be paid out as a lump sum as opposed to addition to his base salary. So that is what is coming to the board as a recommendation from the executive committee.
Does anyone wish to move the item? Mr. Vasquez is moving it, seconded by Mr. Rodriguez-Pena and Mr. Gonzalez. It's open for discussion. Does anyone on the board have any questions?
I'd just like to comment, this is the first time I
Of course.
rate a perfect man. I'm proud of it.
Yes.
Actually, Madam Vice Chair, I'm not perfect because I missed something in my report, and I don't want the meeting to end without saying it. The last item on my report is the cooperative agreement that we have between MDX and Univision is actually taken fruition. For all of the board members and anyone in the public that is out on the street and looks at our road ranger vehicles, they have been wrapped, and they specifically talk about the partnership between MDX and Univision. So we're very proud of that. We will continue to emphasize safety in everything that we do. So I forgot that. So no, I'm not perfect. I forgot.
Time thanks to Chair Maritza Gutierrez for that.
Absolutely. Any other questions about the performance reevaluation of our executive director? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes. The addendum to the agenda, the evaluation and performance and contract of our general counsel. Ms. Vice Chair, that will also be you, and Carol, if you could do a presentation on that.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez, and thank you for allowing this to be placed, because it ordinarily would not have been on the board
Correct.
agenda. So we're happy to share this wonderful information with the board. Carol, thank you.
Thank you. Again, the executive committee conducted the performance appraisal of Mr. Zaldivar, our general counsel, and awarded him the highest rating of exemplary performance. This was Mr. Zaldivar's first performance appraisal since his hire date of November 24th of 2014, and the appraisal comes a few months past his 1-year anniversary. The decision or the recommendation of the executive committee is to do two things. The first is to award or to provide Mr. Zaldivar with a $15,000 merit bonus. This $15,000 really represents the difference between the first salary that was offered of $165,000 when he was hired, or when he was offered the position, and that was eventually changed to $150,000 in recognition that there was some need to get up to speed on the transportation law. So the $15,000 merit bonus represents that amount. In addition, the executive committee would like to recommend that Mr. Zaldivar's contract for the base salary be adjusted from $150,000 to $200,000. So I believe those are the two recommendations.
That is correct. Does anyone, does anyone wish to move the item? Moved by Ms. Gutierrez, seconded by Ms. Weinberg. Now it's open for discussion. Ms. Weinberg, do you have any questions? Or anyone have any questions?
No, just a notation on the retroactive component of that base.
Yes, I'm sorry. For the salary increase, it would be retroactive to November 24th of 2015, which was the 1-year anniversary for Mr. Zaldivar.
Clarification, Carol. And thank you for catching that, Ms. Weinberg. Any other questions? Hearing none, discussion is closed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Congratulations, Carlos. It's well deserved.
Thank you.
Chair comments. I'm going to try to be brief. I just can't promise I will be. As many of you are aware, Senate Bill 299 passed, which will indicate the reduction of this board from the 13 current members to 9 members by attrition. Many of the members of the board that are sitting here today went with me to Miami-Dade days in an effort to try to understand a policy reason for this decision. We weren't given one. But we also need to realize that at the end of the day, we are a creation of the legislation and of the county commission. And they have the ability to expand us, reduce us, and limit our powers at their discretion. We are volunteers. But I would be remiss not to congratulate the members of this board who are currently on this board and those who have been members since its inception to the wonderful accomplishments that have been made throughout the years by Miami-Dade County Expressway Authority. For example, more than 25,000 jobs are going to be created by this agency in Miami-Dade County by the completion of our 5-year work program. Over $1 billion has been invested in our infrastructure and has been infused into our system because of Miami-Dade County. We are the first authority that I believe, and Mr. Director, you can question me, that nationally, that created a cashback program for our clients, for the members of our community. And we are all volunteers that sit here every day. What is important now for us is not to look backwards and ask why. The reason I mention that is there was another comprehensive bill, Senate Bill 1377, that was all-encompassing, that was supported by the entire Miami-Dade delegation, that would have brought potentially hundreds of millions of dollars to Miami-Dade for a fully encompassing transportation type of projects and use. Regardless, for whatever the reasons, it was never voted upon. Nonetheless, I believe strongly that if we all work hard together, that can be brought forth again next year. And I think it's essential that it's done. Today during the executive committee, Ms. Gutierrez asked a very important question of our executive director. Now what? What do we do next? And his answer is one that I believe we all feel. We can't just be about highways. We cannot simply be about expanding our highways because that is not the answer for the questions and concerns our public has about transportation. We need to be an all-encompassing authority. We need to use what we do well, which is get projects done on time, under budget, and correctly, forward for other things to do. That is why I'm such a strong supporter of the park and ride with FDOT, because I believe that is one of the important steps that we did. Why I think the fact that we did the shoulders so that express buses can use them is another step in the right direction. I am challenging all of us to continue to push for those advantages, not to look back and why, what, and whatever occurred, but to continue to be the leaders that each and every one of you is. This is a board of leaders. We make tough decisions, and we stand by those, and we are volunteers, and I am proud to be a member of this board. Mr. Director, because of the legislation that has changed, we need to review all of our policies, because the simple fact is our subcommittees, the contracts, even for your contract, require a numerical representation that I don't believe are sustainable anymore based on the future changes. So I am charging staff to begin the analysis of what needs to be changed and how it needs to be changed. And I agree with with our treasurer. Let's think outside of the box. Where else can we make adjustments as well? And that is something I am strongly recommending. Ultimately, I'd like those recommendations to be brought to me, and then we will have a committee of the whole, of the entire board, to determine what policy changes are going to be made, because all of us have an effect and direct issue on that. And we're a team, from Javier to me to the treasurer to all of us, and that's the way it's always been taught. And as our very dear friend, Ms. Gutierrez, has said a million times, I challenge all of us to think outside of the box, to move forward with where we're going to go, and to think about where we go next. One of the things that came out during policy that was very important is we've turned a page. The story is now talking about forthcoming. We're no longer talking about ORT or the raises of tolls. We are talking about how we can be the leaders. For us to do that, we need to work with our county elected officials, we need to work with the executive branch of the county, the mayor's office, and we need to work with our state legislators, because no individual project plan is going to work without the help of the others. And I want to thank all of you for that, and I just want to be clear, regardless of what happens relating to the attrition of this board, all of us sitting here today, and all of us that have sat on this day since I've been here for 8 years, should be proud of telling people that you sat on the MDX board, because what you've done is difficult and challenging work. And I am proud to say that, and I have no problem letting everyone know what I said on. And I thank you all for your efforts today, and I look forward to all of you again in the future, and we have the workshop next week. Motion to adjourn? Moved, adjourned. Thank you very much.